A lone, human diplomat stands before 26 alien ambassadors, their eyes flicking to the empty chair that should be filled by Earth's highest military officer. Whispers ripple through the chamber. Why does Earth alone defy the centuries-old Concord Protocol? The answer will shatter every assumption about power, peace, and the hidden strengths of humanity. Ambassador Zorax's antennae twitched with irritation as he examined the holographic roster for the 34th time. His compound eyes reflected the blue glow of Earth's delegation list, each name triggering the same frustration he'd felt at the previous 6 galactic Concord Peace Summits. No military officers, again. The Aurora Spire Summit Complex orbited majestically around Tarkus 4. Its translucent corridors bustling with representatives from 27 spacefaring civilizations, designed to accommodate species that breathed everything from oxygen to methane, that thrived in temperatures from near absolute zero to volcanic heat. The station represented the pinnacle of interstellar cooperation. Yet as Zorax's spindly appendage scrolled through Earth's delegation manifest once more, he could not suppress his growing indignation. Ambassador Jackson, Tia. Cultural Attaché Nguyen, Lin. Xenobiologist Okafor, Amara. Cultural Cuisine Advisor Patel, Raj. He read aloud, his mandibles clicking with each name. Not a single colonel, commander, or admiral among them, just like the last 6 summits. In the privacy of his environmentally customized quarters, Zorax allowed himself to pace. 3 ocular ridges furrowed above his compound eyes as his 6 legs carried him in an agitated circuit around the room. As the Vraxian Imperium's senior representative and a staunch enforcer of Concord protocols, he found Earth's consistent deviation from standard practice deeply troubling. Every other civilization brought military liaisons to these gatherings. It was both tradition and pragmatic necessity. The Lumrians sent their methane-breathing war strategists. The crystalline Varxians always included their lattice commanders. Even the microscopic Delvian collective, who attended inside floating containment spheres, made sure their defense coordinator was present. The practice was embedded in the Concord's very foundation. Each species would send military representatives alongside diplomatic ones, creating both a security framework and, perhaps more importantly, a psychological deterrent. By allowing potential adversaries to see each other's military minds, the theory went, no one would be tempted to strike first, knowing their enemy's capability was on full display. Yet Earth alone defied this convention. In Concord diplomatic circles, this had earned humans the unofficial title, the anomaly of protocol. Zorax's musings were interrupted by a gentle chime at his chamber door. His aide, Plex, a junior Vraxian with luminescent markings along his exoskeleton, entered and offered a formal bow, lower appendages folded in deference. Ambassador, the final delegation rosters have been submitted. The summit formally begins tomorrow at first rotation, Plex reported. I've taken the liberty of cross-referencing all military personnel attending. And Earth? Zorax already knew the answer. As in previous years, Ambassador, they have submitted an all-civilian roster. I confirmed twice. Zorax's mandibles clicked rapidly, a sign of deep irritation among Vraxians. This has gone on long enough. Plex. 6 previous summits, and now a 7th where the humans flout convention. I've been diplomatic about this anomaly in the past, but no longer. Zorax slammed a spindly appendage on his desk, scattering several holographic dossiers into momentary disarray before the system recalibrated. This shirking of Concord protocol cannot stand. I will demand they justify themselves in public. Is that wise, Ambassador? Plex's antennae flattened cautiously. The Earth Federation has never violated any explicit summit charter requirements. They always submit comprehensive security briefings and defense analyses as required. Charter 7.3 clearly states that delegations must include representatives from both civilian leadership and defense command structures. Zorax countered. They adhere to the letter, but violate the spirit. Their absence of military personnel has become a diplomatic insult. With decisive movements, Zorax drafted a formal query to Ambassador Jackson's security liaison. Explain why Earth defies Summit Charter 7.3 by refusing to send military representation. He ensured copies would circulate to all 26 other delegations, a public challenge that would force Earth to explain itself before the entire Concord. Dispatched, he announced with satisfaction. Now we'll see what they're hiding. In a secure communication suite, 7 levels below, Agent Krell received an urgent summons from Ambassador Zorax. The gelatinous intelligence operative's body pulsed with bioluminescent patterns of concern as he navigated through the station's restricted passages. As the Concord's chief security analyst, Krell preferred to remain invisible, a shadow that gathered information without being observed. Being summoned directly by Zorax was unusual and unwelcome. When he entered Zorax's private briefing room, the ambassador had already activated every privacy protocol available. The room's electromagnetic dampeners hummed softly, and memory wipe safeguards glowed at each entrance. Agent Krell, Zorax began without preamble. I need everything you have on Earth's military command structure, specifically why they never send officers to these summits. Krell's translucent form rippled with hesitation. Ambassador, with respect. I've already investigated this matter after the 3rd summit when you first raised concerns. Earth's military hierarchy exists in all standard public and Concord classified records. They maintain a traditional chain of command. They simply choose not to include these officers in their delegation. That's not good enough, Zorax insisted. There must be more to it, something hidden. Krell's bioluminescent patterns shifted to a warning red. Ambassador, I must caution you. 3 cycles ago, I attempted a deeper analysis. 2 field agents on Earth went silent. More concerning, my data terminals showed signs of tampering. Zorax's antennae stiffened. Tampering? By whom? Unknown, Krell admitted, his gelatinous form contracting slightly. But the pattern matches other instances where Earth's intelligence agencies were suspected of counter-operations. So they are hiding something, Zorax concluded, his suspicion deepening. Perhaps, Krell's voice lowered to a whisper. Or perhaps they are simply protecting something. Ambassador, I strongly recommend you abandon this line of inquiry. Why? Krell pulsed with anxiety. Because those who dig too deeply into Earth's military anomalies have a troubling tendency to stop communicating altogether. Stop prying, or you'll vanish next. The pre-summit gala that evening transformed the Crystal Circle, normally a forum for heated debate, into a spectacular reception hall. Environmental buffers created microclimates where even the most incompatible species could mingle within meters of each other. Lumrians exchanged methane bubbles containing cultural anecdotes. Crystalline Varxians clicked their translucent mandibles in mathematical rhythm. A cloud of microscale Delvian life forms drifted through designated containment fields, their collective consciousness forming and reforming into representational shapes to communicate. Zorax observed it all from a raised platform, his compound eyes sweeping the crowd until he spotted Ambassador Tia Jackson entering with her small entourage. The human diplomat wore a dark blue suit emblazoned with Earth's 4 national crests. Her posture was relaxed yet dignified as she navigated the crowded hall, stopping occasionally to exchange pleasantries with other species representatives. Zorax descended from his position and maneuvered deliberately toward the Cosmos Buffet, where Jackson was examining a selection of cross-species compatible delicacies. He positioned himself directly in her path, forcing an encounter. Ambassador Jackson, he greeted her, mandibles clicking formally. A pleasure to see Earth represented once again at the Concord. Jackson smiled warmly. Ambassador Zorax, the Vraxian Imperium's continued leadership in these summits is greatly appreciated. I trust your hibernation cycle was rejuvenating? Quite, Zorax replied, then pivoted abruptly to his agenda. "I notice once again that your delegation lacks any military officers. No colonel or flag officer accompanies you. May I inquire why Earth alone, among all Concord signatories, maintains this peculiar absence?" Jackson's smile remained fixed, but Zorax's sensitive antennae detected a subtle shift in her pheromones. Alertness, perhaps caution. Several nearby delegates had paused their conversations, attention drawn to this public confrontation. "As I have explained at previous summits, Ambassador," Jackson replied smoothly, "civilian oversight is our tradition. We meet all Concord requirements. We share comprehensive defense briefings when requested by appropriate committees. But every other signatory sends their war supreme, security attachés, or at least defense liaisons." Zorax pressed, his voice rising just enough to ensure others would hear. "This consistent deviation appears disrespectful to the Concord's established practices." For just an instant, something flashed in Jackson's eyes, a steely resolve that contradicted her diplomatic smile. But her public tone remained measured and polite. "Earth respects Concord norms where codified in charter agreements. Ambassador Zorax, we draw no distinction between our diplomatic and defense interests. Our ambassadors represent both with full authority." From the edge of the gathering, Zorax noticed two humans observing their exchange with careful attention: Lieutenant Riley and Captain Nix of Earth's diplomatic security detail. Unlike the relaxed demeanor of other attendees, these two maintained a vigilant posture. They exchanged glances that suggested silent communication. Zorax sensed his public challenge had struck a nerve. "I've submitted a formal inquiry regarding Earth's compliance with Charter 7.3, he informed Jackson. "Perhaps tomorrow's administrative session would be an appropriate venue to address this anomaly. I look forward to discussing protocol at the proper time and venue," Jackson replied with impeccable courtesy, though Zorax detected the faintest edge in her voice. "If you'll excuse me, Ambassador, I believe the Lumrian envoy is requesting my attention." As she departed, whispers rippled through the assembled delegates. Zorax felt a moment of satisfaction. His challenge would force Earth to reveal its deeper motives, or publicly embarrass themselves by admitting some inadequacy. Either outcome would satisfy his need for protocol enforcement. With a confident click of his mandibles, he moved on to engage the Zetulian ambassador, but his thoughts remained fixed on Earth's peculiar practice and what secrets it might conceal. That night, Zorax found himself unable to enter hibernation. In his specialized pod, regulated to Vraxian optimal conditions, he replayed Jackson's composed responses and the warning from Agent Krell. Something about the entire situation felt wrong, like a predator sensing a trap rather than prey. Why would Earth deliberately maintain this protocol deviation for 7 consecutive summits? What advantage could they possibly gain by excluding military officers? And why had Krell seemed so afraid? Zorax accessed his private terminal, checking whether his formal complaint had been properly logged for tomorrow's administrative session. To his surprise, he found that all logs of his investigation had been expunged from Concord archives. Yet the complaint itself remained intact. Someone was monitoring his activities, erasing his research while leaving his challenge in place. A quiet chime at his chamber door interrupted his troubled thoughts. The hour was late. Most delegates would be in their respective rest cycles. Cautiously, Zorax activated the door's security scanner. Lieutenant Riley of Earth's diplomatic security stood outside, his posture formal and expression neutral. "Ambassador Zorax," Riley stated when the door slid open. "Ambassador Jackson requests the honor of your presence for a discreet parley. Captain Nix and I are authorized to escort you, if you're willing." Zorax's antennae twitched with both fear and curiosity. Jackson's security rarely summoned foreign ambassadors to private talks, especially during rest cycles. "What is the nature of this parley?" Zorax asked cautiously. Ambassador Jackson believes your concerns deserve a thorough response, Riley replied evenly. She prefers to address them privately before tomorrow's public session. After a moment's hesitation, Zorax agreed. Lead the way, Lieutenant. Riley guided him through dimly lit corridors to a small conference room in the human delegation's wing. Unlike the elaborate environmental modifications required by most species, Earth's section was remarkably standard. Conventional atmosphere, gravity, and temperature that required no special adjustments. Inside the conference room, Ambassador Jackson sat beside Captain Nix. Both rose as Zorax entered. Jackson gestured to a seat specially modified for Vraxian physiology. Thank you for coming at this late hour, Ambassador, Jackson began. I believe we can resolve your concerns without the need for tomorrow's public inquiry. Zorax settled his exoskeleton onto the chair. I appreciate your willingness to discuss the matter, Ambassador Jackson, but I've raised this issue at previous summits. Earth's continued deviation from military representation protocol remains unexplained. Jackson nodded to Captain Nix, who activated a privacy field, an advanced countermeasure that created a dampening bubble around the room. The lighting dimmed. Even surveillance drones would lose data feed within this field. What I'm about to share is classified at the highest levels, Jackson explained, as she activated a rotating holographic model of the summit complex. The display showed how each species' unique environment was accommodated. Methane chambers for Lumrians, sub-zero sectors for crystalline races, specialized gravity wells for high-density beings. Notice something, Ambassador? Jackson asked, highlighting the human delegation's quarters. Every species requires special accommodation, except humans. We need no environmental adjustments, no special food synthesizers, no gravity modifications. Zorax's antennae twitched in confusion. What does this have to do with your lack of military representation? Jackson's expression grew serious. What accommodations have ever been necessary for humanity? Ambassador? Oxygen atmosphere? Standard temperature? Common cuisine? None. We adapt to nearly any environment that isn't immediately lethal. This adaptability extends to our social interactions and threat assessment capabilities. I fail to see the connection, Zorax admitted, growing impatient. Let me be more direct, Jackson continued. Why does the Concord insist on military representation at peace summits? Transparency, Zorax replied automatically. By allowing potential adversaries to evaluate each other's military minds directly, we reduce suspicion and create mutual deterrence. Precisely, Jackson nodded. But what if one species' military representatives cannot help but be perceived as threats, regardless of their intentions? Captain Nix stepped forward, activating a second holographic display. Ambassador, what do you see here? 3 side-by-side holographic neural scans appeared. The first showed the neural activity of a Vraxian War Supreme, confronted with an unknown delegate. The second displayed the neural activity of a typical human soldier pre-deployment, reviewing a standard threat assessment dataset. The third revealed neural responses of human diplomats undergoing what was labeled de-escalation training. Zorax stared at the displays, his compound eyes widening as the implications became clear. The neural patterns of a human soldier at rest were nearly identical to those of apex predator species, like Vraxians, Zetulians, and Goral in active threat assessment mode. These instinctual neural circuits are hardwired, Jackson explained quietly. A human officer present at this summit would subconsciously map out weaknesses, escape routes, and threat vectors for every military delegate in the room, unavoidably. That pattern would be detectable by most species' security systems and would be perceived as hostile intent. So you sacrifice protocol adherence to preserve peace? Zorax asked, mandibles clicking slowly as he processed this revelation. You keep this from general knowledge because revealing it would destabilize the summit? Yes, Captain Nix confirmed. Other delegations send their best generals to signal power and establish deterrence. Humans would signal predatory intent instead, simply by being present in uniform. The Vraxians, for instance, might react by fully activating shields and preparing to strike preemptively within hours of detecting our officers' neural patterns. That's why we developed strategic invisibility, Jackson added. Our diplomats undergo extensive neural recalibration, the third scan you see, to suppress those instinctual threat analysis patterns. Military officers cannot achieve the same degree of suppression without compromising their effectiveness as soldiers. So Earth's apparent weakness, sending only civilians, is actually a carefully engineered strategy to prevent escalation, Jackson finished for him. Peace is not natural. Ambassador Zorax, it must be engineered. Our absence of military presence prevents the very thing the Concord fears most: unintended escalation through misinterpreted signals. In that moment, Zorax's worldview shattered. He had assumed Earth was either hiding weakness or concealing some sinister purpose. Instead, he discovered they had outmaneuvered the entire Concord without firing a single blaster. Their top diplomats were practicing a form of restraint he had never considered. The implications were staggering. If human officers' mere presence could trigger such instinctual alarm, what did that suggest about humans as a species? And how had Earth kept this secret through 7 summits? Zorax sat motionless, his exoskeleton rigid as his mind raced through the consequences of this revelation. The silence stretched for nearly a full minute before Jackson spoke again. We would prefer this information remains confidential. Ambassador, withdraw your complaint. No one else need know. The Concord's archives can keep this secret for the sake of collective harmony. Zorax found himself torn between his duty to Concord transparency and the higher duty to maintain peace. After careful consideration, he nodded slowly. I will retract my formal challenge. This knowledge changes everything. Thank you, Jackson said simply, for understanding. The next morning, in the Crystal Circle's opening session, Zorax rose when the procedural matters reached his filed complaint. The Grand Chamber, with its 27 environmentally adapted sections, fell silent as delegates anticipated conflict. Honorable delegates, Zorax began, his voice carrying across the chamber. I wish to withdraw my procedural request regarding Earth's delegation structure. After further consultation with Ambassador Jackson, I am satisfied that Earth's practices, while unique, respect the fundamental principles of the Concord. I apologize for any misunderstanding. Murmurs rippled through the assembled species, some puzzled, some relieved. From across the chamber, Ambassador Jackson offered a respectful bow. The Concord's high speaker, Shimmerong, a luminous energy being contained within a hovering crystal matrix, acknowledged the withdrawal. The matter is closed for today's agenda. Let us proceed to substantive matters. As the session continued, Zorax found himself watching Earth's delegation with new understanding. What he had interpreted as diplomatic arrogance was, in fact, careful restraint. What seemed like protocol violation was actually a sophisticated peacekeeping measure. Later, Zorax confided in his aide Plex. I was wrong to judge without fully understanding. Peace, I see now, sometimes demands silence rather than exposition. Does this mean you'll stop investigating Earth's anomalies? Plex asked, antennae twitching with curiosity. Yes, Zorax confirmed. Some questions are better left unanswered in public forums. Over the next 6 days, the 34th Galactic Concord Peace Summit produced unprecedented results. New trade pacts, interspecies research exchanges, and tighter security protocols, all negotiated more smoothly than at any prior gathering. Observers noted Earth's diplomats navigating tense negotiations with uncanny intuition, defusing potential conflicts before they could escalate. On the final day, as delegations prepared to depart, Zorax found himself standing beside Jackson in the main docking bay, watching various species board their specialized transport vessels. "Your delegation performed admirably," Zorax remarked. "I see now what you and Captain Nix meant. Your civilian security is formidable in ways I never anticipated." He studied Nix's composed posture as she supervised the boarding procedures, then extended a bent appendage in the Vraxian gesture of profound respect. "Sometimes the strongest shield is the one never drawn," Jackson replied quietly. As his own delegation prepared to board their ship, Zorax found himself contemplating the implications of Earth's strategy. "I wonder how many other species conceal subtle protocols for the sake of peace. I will watch more carefully now, not with suspicion, but with humility." "That's all we can ask," Jackson said with a genuine smile. "Safe travels, Ambassador." From the viewport of his departing vessel, Zorax watched as Aurora Spire receded against the backdrop of Tarkus Fra, its lights blinking in departure sequence. He reflected that genuine diplomacy often thrived not in thunderous displays of power, but in strategic quietude, the art of knowing when to remain invisible. And perhaps, he thought, that was the most profound lesson Earth had taught the conquered. Lieutenant Riley checked the security perimeter one final time as Earth's delegation prepared to board their shuttle. Captain Nix approached, her expression neutral, but her eyes alert as always. "Do you think he bought it?" Riley asked quietly. Nix's lips curved in the faintest smile. "Ambassador Zorax?" "Completely." The neural scan displays were particularly effective. Nothing convinces quite like seeing one's own brain patterns. "And the real reason we never bring military officers?" Riley pressed. "Remains classified at level 9, Nix replied, her voice dropping to a whisper. "Earth Central would prefer we maintain the fiction, rather than reveal that human military neural architecture is actually—" "Captain," Jackson interrupted, approaching from behind. "Our shuttle is ready. All sensitive materials have been purged from the summit database." Nix nodded. "Thank you, Ambassador. We should depart before the Zetulians request another cultural exchange. I don't think I can endure another 12-hour ceremonial dance." As Earth's delegation boarded their vessel, Zorax's words echoed in Jackson's mind. "Sometimes the strongest shield is the one never drawn." If only he knew how right he was, and how much stronger Earth's hidden shield truly was. The truth would have to wait for another summit, another time. For now, peace would endure, maintained by strategic invisibility and the unspoken power of what remained concealed. In the vast expanse of space, their shuttle accelerated toward the jump point, leaving behind a summit where, once again, Earth's greatest secret remained hidden in plain sight. 6 months later, in a secure briefing room deep beneath Geneva, General Elena Markov reviewed the classified report from the 34th Galactic Concord Peace Summit. Her weathered face betrayed no emotion as she scrolled through Ambassador Jackson's assessment. "So Zorax accepted our explanation," she noted to the assembled Joint Chiefs. "The neural pattern deception worked." "Yes, General," replied Admiral Tenzin, his holographic projection flickering slightly. "The Vraxians and 17 other species now believe our military absence is a peacekeeping measure. The remaining 9 remain suspicious, but have no concrete theory to replace it." "And the real reason remains secure," Markov confirmed, her eyes narrowing. "Absolutely," Tenzin assured her. "No one outside this room knows the truth about human military neural architecture and its effect on non-human species. The cover-up has held for 7 consecutive summits." Markov nodded, satisfied. "Then we continue as before. No military personnel at Concord gatherings. No exceptions." As the briefing concluded, Markov stood alone at the window overlooking Lake Geneva. Humanity had come so far since first contact, mastering the delicate dance of interstellar diplomacy. Yet their greatest advantage remained their most closely guarded secret: One that even Zorax, for all his insight, had only glimpsed the shadow of. "The strongest shield is the one never drawn," she murmured, echoing Jackson's words. "And the most powerful weapon is the one your enemy never suspects you possess." Outside, stars glimmered in the night sky, each potentially home to civilizations that believed they understood humanity. The truth was far more complex and far more dangerous than any of them could imagine. And that was precisely how Earth intended to keep it. Ambassador Zorax of the Vraxian Imperium had been correct about one thing. Earth was hiding something at the Galactic Concord Peace Summits. But he had only discovered the decoy secret, the carefully constructed explanation designed to satisfy curious minds. The real truth remained invisible, just like Earth's military officers at the negotiating table. And in that invisibility lay humanity's greatest strength. The real reason Earth never brought their military to peace summits was far simpler and far more terrifying than neural architecture or threat assessment patterns. It was also the reason why, despite being newcomers to the galactic stage, humans had never been invaded, never been conquered, and never been underestimated twice by any species that encountered them in battle. The truth that General Markov and the Joint Chiefs protected was biological, not psychological. Human military personnel, through a combination of natural evolution and centuries of warfare, had developed a unique characteristic unknown in any other sentient species. They could instinctively detect and exploit weaknesses in any opponent, any defense system, any battle strategy, without conscious thought. More alarming still, when placed in close proximity to potential adversaries, human officers unconsciously broadcast tactical solutions to their neural implants, standard issue for all Earth military personnel above certain rank. These implants recorded and analyzed these instinctive insights, creating battle plans of devastating effectiveness without any deliberate action by the human hosts. The first time Earth had sent military officers to an interstellar gathering, decades before joining the conquered, 3 separate species had suffered coup attempts within a month. Earth's officers had unconsciously identified regime vulnerabilities, and their neural implants had transmitted this data back to Earth's Central Command. No one had acted on this information, but the pattern was clear and frightening. Human military minds were natural codebreakers, instinctive strategists who could unravel any defense simply by being in its presence. This was why Earth maintained strategic invisibility, not to protect other species from feeling threatened, but to protect them from having their every weakness mapped, analyzed, and stored in Earth's defense databases. It was also why, despite being physically unexceptional, humans had never lost an interstellar conflict. Those few species who had initiated hostilities discovered too late that Earth already possessed complete strategic breakdowns of their military capabilities, collected passively by human officers who had simply been in the same room as their military leaders. This was the truth that Ambassador Jackson protected with her neural scan deception. This was why Captain Nix and Lieutenant Riley maintained such vigilant watch over Earth's delegation. And this was why General Markov insisted that no military personnel ever attend conquered functions. Because peace, as Jackson had told Zorax, must be engineered. And sometimes, maintaining that peace meant hiding your greatest strength, especially when that strength could unmake every defense in the galaxy without even trying. In the vast architecture of interstellar diplomacy, Earth had discovered that true power lay not in what you revealed, but in what you kept hidden. Their empty chair at the military table wasn't a sign of weakness or peculiar tradition. It was the most powerful statement they could make, a deliberate choice to keep the galaxy's most dangerous weapon sheathed. And as long as that weapon remained invisible, peace would endure. 3 years later, as preparations began for the 35th Galactic Concord Peace Summit, Ambassador Zorax received a curious package from Earth. Inside, he found a small holographic projector and a handwritten note from Ambassador Jackson. For your eyes only, the full truth deserves a proper guardian. When activated in the privacy of his hibernation chamber, the projector displayed a complete security briefing on the real reason behind Earth's strategic invisibility protocol. As Zorax absorbed the staggering implications, his mandibles clicked in a pattern that Vraxians reserved for profound revelations. He now understood why Jackson had trusted him with the neural scan explanation years earlier. It wasn't the complete truth, merely the first layer of a deeper secret. This final revelation explained everything: why Earth had never lost a conflict, why their military officers never appeared at diplomatic functions, and why those species who had challenged humans militarily had surrendered so quickly. When the projection ended, it self-destructed with a small flash, leaving no trace. Zorax sat motionless for hours, contemplating the implications. Finally, he reached a decision. As the new High Speaker of the Conquered, he would quietly ensure that Earth's empty military chair remained unchallenged at all future summits. Some protocols existed for reasons beyond tradition. They existed to preserve the very fabric of galactic peace. And sometimes, the most powerful statement in diplomacy was an empty chair, marking the deliberate absence of a force too powerful to be safely revealed. In the end, it wasn't what Earth brought to the peace summits that mattered. It was what they chose to leave behind.